Welcome to a 3v3 on a map whose name I don't know. The map is Lemberg Fall 1944. If memory serves, I think this is a community spotlight map. I could be mistaken. Might just be on the workshop. It's definitely not in the auto match rotation though, which is why most of you probably don't recognize it. It looks interesting. I've certainly never cast a game on it before, so this is gonna be new to me. Let's take a look at the tactical map and see what we've got. It's got kind of a rectangular layout. Munitions points, huge munitions points by the way, plus 21. That's weird. In the corners, and I think maybe that's because, I don't know, are there like fewer strategic points on this map or something? I'm not sure what the deal is there. We've also got plus 11 fuel points on both sides. So Allies seem to have a natural fuel hold there. Axis seem to have. It doesn't look like the fuel is really going to be contended for so much. Munitions maybe a little bit more so since they're in the corners, and we'll also notice the layout of the map makes cutting the munitions points off pretty easy to do. The cutoff is a lot more easily accessible than the munitions point itself. So I don't know. I'm not sure what I think about it. Victory point layout also seems to promote pretty even spread between the two bases. Doesn't seem to favor either base position either way. As far as being able to hold the VPs, the center VP is surrounded by these buildings. We'll probably make this a central combat location. Probably going to be a lot of fighting for this area. So, I don't know, this could be strange. Oh shit, my overlay. Whoops. So yeah, I don't know, this could be a little weird. Guess we'll see how it shakes out. We've got the first engagement happening already here in the center, and it appears to be going in favor of the Allies, capturing the central victory point now and forcing a full retreat from various infantry squads there. But a huge flank from the Axis over here on the left side is going to force Allies to make a retreat in kind if support doesn't arrive soon. We do have an M3 being loaded up with a flamethrower over there on the left side, and another M3 over here taking control of the munitions. Meanwhile, the Axis have not taken their munitions on their half of the map at all, focusing all of their forces immediately towards the central victory point, trying to set up an initial defense. We've got Tier 3 being constructed over here by Robocop Highlander, and Sturm Tiger 44 throwing up battle group headquarters in a pretty forward position. He should be able to utilize this with the forward retreat point unlock as a staging position to continue making offensives towards the center victory point. M3 loaded up with a flamethrower is chasing various infantry squads out of the center, and they will be forced to heal up and reinforce back in the base. Sturm Pioneers come dangerously close to getting wiped, but they do round the corner and get away. The M3 disengages from that chase to instead chase this squad of Grenadiers, which looks like it's going to get wiped. Since it still has quite a way to go. There it is. Flame crit goes off and the squad's taken out. Still no attempt by the Axis or Allies to take control of the munitions and strategic points in the south and east. Meanwhile, this M3 continues to ferry combat engineers across the left side and get those territories under control, and the cutoff is being secured now, which will give the Allies a huge munitions income. I don't understand why these munitions, that's like a crazy amount of munitions. Almost doubling the Allies' munitions income by holding that point. Goes from 30 to 62, so it literally doubled their munitions income once they secured that cutoff and the munitions point itself, and they will be taking control of the east munitions as well, which means they're going to have a munitions income of 83, which is massive. And the Axis are going to be stuck with a tiny fraction of that. Fuel income is pretty wide disparity as well. 43 coming in for the Allies and only 20 coming in for the Axis. and they're feeling very contained in their base right now, with Allied infantry completely swarming. And every attempt the Axis makes to break free of their containment is going quite poorly, although they do pick up one squad wipe there. They're going to have to do a lot more than that and get some territory under their control if they don't want to just get completely shut down. Full squad of Sturm Pioneers wiped there. But at least the forward retreat point has been unlocked on this battle group headquarters, and the Axis should be able to utilize that as a forward reinforce point, whereas the Allies have no such utility. Mortar landing in this general area looks like it will force this infantry formation to disperse. The harassment continues across the east, and the Axis have made no attempt whatsoever to send any squads to get those territories under control, because they can barely maintain their hold on the territory over here, and losing this fuel point would be devastating, to say the very least. That is a loss they would definitely not be able to afford, so I could understand why they would dedicate all of their forces to defending this area, but if they don't get some more territory under their control, they're going to be overwhelmed by massive swarms of Allied tanks and munitions-related abilities. Cabrez already has 300 munitions in the bank, and that's really only a little over 3 minutes worth of float because it's coming in so fast. I've never seen such a monstrous munitions income. It looks like the Axis are finally breaking through a little bit over here on the left side. Allies don't have anything to prevent these squads of Volksgrenadiers from getting some territories back under control after a mass Allied retreat here from the center. A little bit of probing here towards the center by GB Pirates forces will get shut down by squads of Allied infantry, which are going to maintain their hold on the central victory point, and the Allies already have a 100-point lead. Pioneers attempting to harass the right side get chased away by a BAR-equipped rifleman squad, while riflemen in the church are taking heavy damage from mortar fire, and a Stuka is firing. The barrage is targeted along the railway and forces retreat from one conscript squad, but other than that, inflicts very minor damage. Grenades being thrown / shot out of rifles will inflict heavy damage on a Maxim and wipe the squad, I think. Yes. Handing that team weapon over to the Axis. Meanwhile, the left side munitions have been taken by these Volksgrenadiers, but will soon be lost to conscripts moving to counter. A Katyusha has also been fielded, so both sides of this battlefield have access to rocket artillery. Riflemen here in the south will continue to hold onto this territory, but we will see a bit of an attempt by GB Pirate to flush them out of their defensive positions with a mortar and massed infantry and get some of this territory back under control. We also have Pioneers skipping past the resource points to try to slow the victory point bleed. Squads on the left side have pushed back all Axis infantry, but are not able to maintain control of the munitions cutoff now that there is a tier 4 structure defending it. The battle for the center continues to be quite lethal as a machine gun with armor-piercing incendiary rounds forces a lieutenant to retreat, and riflemen will have to look for an alternative angle of approach.
Light tank ready for action.
All American forces that were defending in this area have been flushed out, and the Axis should be able to get some of these territories under control should they be able to dedicate a squad of infantry to capture them. Panzer II has been fielded and is going to try to force conscripts away here on the left. They'll be flushed away from the fuel position, and although they do decapture it for a little while, it looks like he's going to pay a heavy price, losing 2 full conscript squads just for a few moments of the fuel being cut off from the Axis, and I don't really think that that was a worthwhile trade. The Allies are clearly struggling to find a way to attack this forward position. Now that the Tier 4 structure is here, they have to field a much heavier counter than just infantry. Stuka bombards this position and deals light damage to 1 rifleman squad, but other than that, it's off target once again. The Pioneer squad on the right side has captured the victory point and is moving for the munitions now, but that will remain cut off until these strategic points can also be secured. That Rifleman squad was not being monitored and will get wiped by Panzer Grenadiers charging into close range, but an AA half-track will force a retreat from that squad almost immediately. Airborne has been chosen by Masked Monkey, and a squad of paratroopers is being fielded now. Cabreza has not yet chosen his commander, and neither has Chalky Starfish, so the Soviets are leaving their options open for later in the game. We do have the possibility of a late game B4 from both players, as well as the standard Soviet call-in tanks. IS-2, ISU-152, and T-34-85s are all options. Panzer II exposes itself to an Su-85 and field gun for too long and is destroyed. And now pressure is being applied to the Tier 4 structure, and the Axis will need to find a way to screen it away. It's taking heavy damage quite rapidly, and the terrain variations here are the only thing available to protect it, and they're not doing a very good job. Raketenwerfer is being moved up to try and screen that Su-85 away, but it looks like it may already be too late.
The Germans just cut off our supply line.
Field gun finishes the job, and the Tier 4 structure has been destroyed, which means that Sturm Tiger 44 will no longer have access to the Panther. He had 125 fuel in the bank at the time that his Tier 4 structure was taken out, so he's now probably going to be forced to fall back onto a Jagdpanzer or simply hold out for a Jagdflieger, since he has chosen breakthrough tactics, and he has 1,500 manpower in the bank. He could have had like 4 Raketenwerfers available if he'd wanted. Seems like a shame to lose your Tier 4 structure when not having produced any units with which to defend it.
Taking fire!
Allies, on the other hand, keeping their resource counts pretty low, although there is some pretty classic Soviet fuel float going on. Robocop Highlander has quite a bit of resources in the bank as well, but GB Pirate also doing a ton of float. The Axis is barely spending their resources at all. I don't know why. It's a little weird. Stuka unloads a barrage here on the right side, inflicting pretty reasonable damage against that AA half-track. It will require some repairs. Paratroopers that have been fielded are equipped with Brownings, also get forced out of the center point. A mortar has been deployed here by GB Pirate. It's up to 7 kills in Bet 1, so it's performing quite well at screening the Allied advance. Raketenwerfer here in the middle is getting cleared out by conscripts, but it should be adequately protected by Panzer Fusiliers and Volksgrenadiers. And the left side munitions will be reconnected to the Axis by the victory point and strategic points over here on the left side. Meanwhile, the munitions over here is being harassed by Pathfinders. Other than that, things are getting pretty quiet. Both Soviet players have gone with Tier 4. 2 Su-85s for Chalky Starfish and 1 Katyusha for Cabreza, and beyond that it would seem that they're both going to go for heavy call-in usage.
Forward element, increase fire!
I have to say, despite the incredible amount of resource float by the Axis, the massive, massive resource flow by the Axis, they have an extremely good map control situation. It's pretty amazing. The Allies really need to capitalize on the fact that their opponents have barely made any units at all, and charge forward and overwhelm these positions. As we can see, they're not very well defended, and the Allied counterattack is commencing now. Pathfinders on the right side just wiped a Volksgrenadier squad, I think. They may struggle to do the same against these Grenadiers and Panzer Grenadiers. However, there is an AA half-track available in the immediate vicinity to support. A huge blob of Allied infantry is charging this Axis position and will easily be able to overwhelm the defending Obersoldaten and Volksgrenadiers. Stuka, however, is firing in the area. Inflicts significant casualties and damage, but nothing too severe, and it looks like the Allied push may continue. Three squads making their way across the left side should be able to force away this squad of conscripts easily enough, and it looks like this Allied push is going to get completely shut down. This heavy investment into Su-85s means that they don't really have any versatile anti-infantry units with which to spearhead a push through all of these squads of infantry, although the Katyusha is doing a decent job of softening up the formations. It doesn't seem to be enough, unfortunately. The AA half-track is still pretty much stationary over here. The Pathfinders have been completely cleaned out, and the Axis will be able to retake control of the munitions and victory points on the right side. Panther has hit the field from GB Pirate and is making its way directly to the right to deal with the AA half-track, and still no commander selection from him. He does have access to a Tiger in one of his commanders, but it seems that he's going to be relying on Ostheer Corps units rather than call-in units here, which, while inefficient to start off with, should be fine at this stage of the game, especially given his extremely high resource income. There's just an immense amount of resources available on this map. 42 fuel coming in for the Allies and 36 coming in for the Axis. There's just so much resources. 750 munitions from Cabreza. Shocky Starfish is spending all of his munitions, although I guess I don't really know what he's spending it on. There must be like a million demo charges, apparently. Wow, there's demo charges everywhere. Actually trying to take full advantage of the fact that they have a ridiculous munitions income means that there are now demo charges peppering the entire battlefield. Incendiary artillery is probably, they should pretty much be free to utilize that every single time it comes off cooldown. I'm surprised that they haven't just dropped that constantly every single time they see any enemy units of any kind. I just don't know how the Axis are possibly going to be able to survive this massively inflated munitions income.
We have a full complement! Standing by. Ready to execute.
Sturm Tiger 44 has decided to spend some of his monstrous manpower float on infantry support guns, making their way to the battlefield now. Probably not the best decision, considering how many tools the Allies are going to have with which to destroy those, whether it's incendiary artillery or Katyushas or what have you. It seems unlikely that they're going to be a very cost-effective decision, but I guess I could be wrong. Allies are taking control of all three victory points once again as the rifleman sees the right, and paratroopers successfully screen away all attempts to take this point as well.
The command half-track has been converted to the headquarters building.
Panzer Fusiliers moving up, throw a grenade, almost wipe the squad, but it retreats just in time, and a lieutenant and shock troops will be more than enough to force it to retreat in kind. An attempt to take the left side victory point looks like it's not going all that well. These Volksgrenadiers are taking a lot of fire from various defending squads and will probably be forced to retreat. They unload a volley of Panzer strikes at the Major there for whatever reason, before retreating
Ready for action.
through the demo charge field. Largely unharmed. Also being chased down by a Sherman with high explosive rounds loaded, and I'm not sure that this final squad's going to get clear. Nope, it does not, and Panzerschreck is dropped. Stuka moving up to fire. Does minor damage to a conscript squad, but other than that, inflicts no real harm. Infantry taking control of a victory point here on the right side will slow the victory point brigade.
300 points.
But the Axis are falling behind. 50 points behind now, and the lead will continue to grow if the Axis don't make a big push for the center or left side. Sturm Tiger 44 is almost back up to 2,000 manpower once again. But its 2 infantry support guns have hit the field. It's keeping them dangerously close to each other, however, leaving them vulnerable to indirect fire or other forms of artillery. Grenades being exchanged in the center victory point. Katyusha softening up the Axis infantry as well. Shock troops look like they will be able to maintain control, at least for now. But we're still done to move up to make another attempt. Both sides being very hesitant to commit to a big engagement, though. GB Pirate continues to mass Panthers here in the back. There's still 2 Su-85s over here, and Sherman Spam is about to begin, I believe. Mass Monkey has produced 1 Sherman and a Jackson, actually. And has 400 fuel in the bank, so there's certainly no shortage of that. Should be able to just keep the tank production going non-stop. Cabreza has finally hit the command point requirement. He needs to start fielding IS-2s. Those are probably going to be hitting the field in massive quantities. Chalky Starfish has gone with counterattack tactics, and we're probably going to start seeing lots of B4s. Maybe a KV-1 sprinkled in as well. The 2 Panthers have moved to engage in the center, and they deal significant damage to the Sherman, but will be forced to retreat after the Jackson applies sufficient pressure. Stuka is firing on various infantry formations here in the back, and all allied infantry will retreat away from the central point. Stuka Barrage is actually targeted at the Katyusha and brings it dangerously low. Axis infantry moving up across the center will try to force retreats from the Lieutenant and the Paratrooper squad, utilizing infiltration grenades, but it's slightly off target, and the allied infantry will win the engagement. The Axis managed to capture the center point, but only ever so briefly before being forced away themselves. First IS-2 has had a pretty decent impact, forcing all Axis infantry away from the center. The point remains in German hands for now, while allied infantry reinforces and heals behind their lines. A stolen Rakettenwerfer is being fielded towards the trying to get it under control. Meanwhile, a P-47 strike has been called in behind enemy lines to apply some pressure to Axis tanks. The Allies move up to re-secure victory points. Heard a B4 fire. Looks like it did minor damage to an Obersoldaten squad, but other than that, I guess it killed some medics. It's a little bit off target. If that were to connect nicely with Sturm Tiger's battle group headquarters here, that could inflict huge casualties, but for now, hasn't done too much. It's going to be very important that the Axis destroy this as quickly as they can. GB Pirate has chosen close air support, so a Stuka dive bomb is a very real possibility. The Robocop Highlander has also chosen Spec Ops, so they will have access to artillery flares as a form of recon if so desire. P-47 continues to make passes behind Axis lines, and he needs to get that Command Panther out of the strike zone. I don't know where the strike zone ends. Maybe he doesn't either. But it will need some hasty repairs. Meanwhile, a Stuka dive bomb has been called down back here somewhere, but not on the B4. So they did not obtain proper vision. Jagdpanzer is making its way up to the front lines, and 2 Panthers look like they're not exactly sure where they should move to engage for now.
Our territory is falling into enemy hands.
Hit the engine!
The enemy has taken our supply sector.
Panthers move up to engage some infantry formations, but there's a lot to chew through. I think a B4 just fired right here. I don't know if that hit anything. Didn't look like it. Infiltration grenades going out on the shock troops are a little bit off target as well, and all-axis infantry looks like it is going to be forced to retreat. A Stuka barrage being fired here in the rear looks like it did wipe 1 squad of allied infantry, and a lot of assault artillery got dropped in this sector as well, but overall it doesn't look like it inflicted all that much damage.
Shock troops have arrived.
Allies re-secure control of the center victory point and the right side munitions, bringing their munitions income up to 93 munitions coming in, which is ridiculous. Apparently they built themselves a munitions cache, which is absurd because all of them have at least 300 munitions in the bank. I can't imagine why they felt that was necessary. But they have even more munitions.
Shock troops awaiting deployment.
Axis really need to make a big push. They can't just sit here with all their big tanks continuing to get shelled by B4s and Katyushas. There's no way they'll survive that. The victory point bleed is getting out of control. Only 150 points remain. We will see an attempt by GB Pirate to get some territory under control over here on the right side. Full squad just got wiped by S-mines as well. Of paratroopers, I think. So the right side will fall. B4 is scouting for recon run scouting for targets over here in the center, and I think we've still only got 1 B4 on the field currently. In fact, he's 2 pop caps to throw out another one.
Do you need something?
And it actually hasn't done much. It's only got 3 kills so far. He's gonna have to hope for better shots or fire at shorter range. Proving difficult so far, apparently. Right side in Axis control once again. It looks like the Allies are mobilizing for a push towards the center and try and take out some priority targets. If they were to mobilize all of their tanks simultaneously towards the left, they could probably take out some priority things over here, particularly those Stukas. By engaging in the center, they are contending with the frontal armor of Panthers and Jagdpanzers, and if they were to go for the right, they would only have to contend with a little bit of minor infantry defense to get through to this victory point and start the clock ticking once again. Stuka dive bomb came down on the B4 but did not destroy it. It was a little off target and the gun is actually still intact. They're gonna have to bomb it again, but as we know, there's no shortage of munitions. Paratroopers make a bit of an attempt to take the victory point. They force a retreat from 1 Grenadier squad before advancing on the point itself. The engagement for the center is getting pretty heated. Incendiary artillery being dropped on Axis infantry, which are trying to take control of the center point, and Jacksons are laying heavy fire on those Panthers as they try to provide cover for the infantry. There's also an AT gun over here dealing a little bit of light damage as well. But Sturm Tiger 44 has fielded himself a Jagdtiger, and with this he should be able to apply a lot of pressure to the enemy tanks. He will of course require vision, and a recon run is being brought in now. Jagdtiger gets a huge hit on the front of one of the Su-85s here, and a Stuka is also trying to soften up the tanks a little bit as well. A plane just crashed and almost nailed that Jackson, but fortunately it was slightly off the mark.
Tiger ready.
IS-2 is getting bold here, wants to engage that Jagdtiger, but it's very dangerous to do so, plus it has Jag Panzer support, and it's already brought down to half health just from 2 shots. A T-gun making its way to the front line is successfully screened away by Obersoldaten and Volksgrenadiers. A Katyusha, however, is firing somewhere in the area. I guess. I thought I heard it. No, that was a Panzerwerfer on the field. Stuka firing, clearing up formations. All 3 forms of rocket artillery are on the battlefield. Apparently that Panzerwerfer barrage inflicted 0 damage wherever it was targeted. And it looks like the center victory point is going to be taken by these conscripts.
Reconnaissance flight set to go. We are losing a sector. Enemy expunged. Uganda attack.
Anti-infantry strafe will prevent a new B4 from being completed, but honestly they could just let it get constructed and then bomb it. Either way, I guess whatever gets the job done and keeps that thing off the field, keeps it from firing and taking out the Jagdtiger, taking out any Panthers. The desperate contest for the center victory point continues, and it looks like the Axis are getting pushed off and flamethrower engineers will try and get it captured, but more Volksgrenadiers are flooding forth to try and make something happen, and we're going to see a big push by the Axis. This could be a very climactic attack here. P-47's being called in to support. 3 Panthers are charging straight into the Allied lines. 4 Panthers, in fact. Big flank by the American here to try and take out the Panthers from the rear. That Panther will go down to this Jackson flank. Meanwhile, the Jagdtiger is continuing to try and back away and provide supporting fire of its own. Panzerwerfer actually blocks the Jackson's pathing here, but the Jagdtiger gets continually dazed by Jackson fire and is not able to move optimally. Panthers are trying to get back to support, and this excellent flank by the Allies is putting this Jagdtiger in a lot of danger, but it's maneuvering well, handling the situation gracefully, and it looks like this Allied push may fail. P-47 support, bringing one of the Panthers down quite low, puts it in a lot of danger, but I don't see any supporting fire coming up from the Soviets. We do have an Su-85 and IS-2 available to support in the engagement, but either way, it looks like that Panther may survive this. If that Jagdtiger can fire. That Jackson is just ever so slightly too agile. A Panzerschreck shot connects with the Panther's frontal armor, and here it comes! The Jackson fires on the Panther's frontal armor and does successfully destroy it. These tanks just cannot bring themselves about to fire on that Jackson and finish the job. Stuka finds itself in a bit of danger, but another Panther is available over here to fire on that Jackson, and it's trying to make its escape, and it looks like it will successfully do so, since this Jagdpanzer cannot seem to squeeze its way through that narrow gap. Nice attack by that American player, diving deep behind enemy lines and taking out some priority targets, and losing 2 of his 3 Jacksons, but overall trading quite well. That big push by the Axis really backfired. The immediate Allied counterattack was far too much for them to handle. They were forced to try to react deep behind their own lines, and as a result, they've lost a lot of territory, desperately trying to contend for the victory point over here on the right side, but paratroopers have just been deployed and all Axis infantry has been forced to retreat, and the clock is going to begin ticking against the Axis once again. With only 89 points remaining, I don't know if there's going to be anything they can do to dig themselves out of this situation and turn the game around. Huge blob of infantry desperately being fielded through a wall of flames to try to get victory points under control. A giant wall of Volksgrenadiers backed by Obersoldaten should be able to contend well with mostly conscripts and shock troops, and the victory point will begin capturing in favor of the Germans.
Aerial reconnaissance standing by.
Grenade is off target and Obersoldaten will re-enter the capture circle to get it back under control. Paratroopers standing in green cover here to defend the victory point may get flushed out by the Grenadiers and Panzer Grenadiers making their way to the front lines. Paratroopers are not being upgraded with any heavier weapons and they will definitely be forced from that defensive position. Hopefully the Axis will be able to slow the victory point clock. They have only 50 points remaining and they're rapidly running out of time as Allied infantry pushes them from the center. Panzer Grenadiers easily force the paratroopers to retreat and GB Pirates should be able to secure the right side victory point.
Germans have 50 points remaining. Button down the hatches!
Panzer Grenadiers are forced to retreat by a Sherman making its way across the right side, and once that Sherman forces a retreat from the Grenadiers over there, that could be the game. It will be up to these Axis tanks to push that Sherman away, but they're currently tied up in an engagement for the center, and it looks like the game is going to draw to a close. Allies will further delay capture of the center by flooding the capture circle with shock troops and conscripts. Doesn't look like these Volksgrenadiers are going to be able to flush these Allied infantry away in time. Molotov connects nicely and gets one crit. Incendiary artillery being deployed into the capture circle and an IS-2 is also screening. 17 points remaining, and the Allies have retaken control of the right side victory point.
Field promotion!
10 points remain. All hope is lost.
And the game is over. I'm not sure what I think about this map, honestly. I feel like the massively inflated munitions income is just ridiculous. I don't think the players even really knew what to do with it all. They just had way too much. Fuel income seemed pretty high too. As for the layout, I think it led to some interesting engagements. It's pretty open though. The center is just a death gauntlet. Just a mass grave from start to finish the entire game. Seems like this map is just designed to promote extremely high lethality in engagements. It's a little small for a 3v3 map, but I don't know. It's also quite open. Not sure what I think of it. But either way, Allies seem to take better advantage of what it provided, and they prevailed in the end. Good game. Allies win.